Steve again. I'm out here in California driving the 2021 Mustang Mach 1. As you might know, Ford put to bed the Bullitt and the Shelby GT350. And while this car isn't meant to replace either one of those, it does draw some parts from both of them to create an all-new high-performance model, which Ford describes as the pinnacle of 5-liter performance, particularly on the track. So, come along with me. We're going to learn a little bit about the car. We're going to drive it on the road course, drive it on the street, see what it's all about.
Being here, I can't tell you how excited we are to have you drive this car. A lot of the men and women of the Mustang team have put a lot of energy and effort into this vehicle, and we know that you are going to be impressed today, not only with the drive on the road that we've laid out that we think will demonstrate it well, but here at the streets of Willow for the track performance of it. I can't tell you, from a perspective of if you think of Mach 1 and breaking the sound barrier to be in this location so close to an Air Force base, that it really kind of ties in very nicely to the launch of this vehicle. The vehicles in the fighter jet gray color that you hear, is only on the appearance package. It is specific to the appearance package and will not appear on any other Mustang in the 21 model year. So that is the unique appearance package with the fighter jet gray. So we thought we would have it here, located near to this Air Force base. 2021 is going to be an extremely exciting year for Ford, and a lot of the folks are saying it's the year of the icons. If you think of some of our iconic brands, the Bronco and the Mustang, those vehicles have an exciting year coming out. But how did we get here from a Mach 1 standpoint? If you think about this, back in the 60s and 69 when the Mach 1 came out, Mickey Thompson going out to the Bonneville Salt Flats, setting 295 speed and endurance records in that vehicle. That was the ultimate as far as the performance goes from the speed standpoint of Mustang at the time. But it was a little bit different. If you think about it, Chuck Yeager breaking the sound barrier in Glamorous Glynis, celebrating that speed, it was an evolution for Mustang. And if you think about it, the 65, 66 era Mustangs were very classic. They were in that, that sports car segment, if you will. The Mach 1 basically took it to a personalization factor. So if you think about now the Mustangs that do on custom, I saw a couple of them in pictures this morning from you guys, how you could make it your own Mustang. And the Mach 1 was really that first version that we did with that. If you think about it, you had chances to choose of powertrain, striping, wings. You could change the appearance and the performance of the Mustang to make it yours. It was fit right in between the Mustang GT and the Shelby GT350s and the Bosses that we were doing from a performance standpoint. Heck, Mach 1 in 69 actually outsold the Mustang GT version almost 7-1. So that hunger for that power and performance and that personalization really came to fruition with that Mach 1 vehicle that we launched back then. Now, we've been doing specialty vehicles and specialty Mustangs over the various generations. And now in Gen 6, the last of the Mach 1s we did was 0304. We did the 60s era, we did the Mustang 2 era, then 0304, at the end of the Generation 4, we did a Mustang that a lot of you I know have driven, that was that pinnacle of performance at that time. In Gen 6, the men and women who are working for Carl, who developed it, some of the folks with the handling who are developing the dynamics and the program side are here with you today. They've taken all of those learnings from the GT350, the GT500, the Bullitt, to be able to actually do a Mach 1 that meets up to its name. So it has been 17 model years, but this vehicle truly can live up to what Mach 1 means. And how do I mean that? When I talked a little bit about that power of personalization, you have powertrain choices in here. For our performance vehicle or specialty, if you think about it, the Bullitt had the manual transmission. GT350 had the manual transmission. We didn't develop the performance package with both a manual and now an automatic. It's the first time we've done it, so you have a chance to choose your powertrain. We've also put in, and Carl will talk a little bit about it, that 6-speed Tremec box for the manual with rev matching. Now, when we were going out here doing it, when the racing school instructor Jokin is here, we'll be leading the classes that the owners get, and I'll talk about that in a second. You know, I was going in there and I'm rolling into my heel toe, right? I'm like trying to figure out, I'm like, wait, we have in the Tremec now the rev matching for it. Now you still do the motions for it. So then you also have not only the power of personalization in the Mach 1 from the performance aspect of it. So you can get the handling package, you can get the non-handling package, you can get the automatic, and you get the manual. And they are, you know, basically track-ready components with the coolers to go out there and do a track day. When we say it's the pinnacle, not only of performance, you also get to choose from your appearance packages, if you will. So we have a 600A that starts at about $52,300. So you can get it with the cloth interior, that you can get it with just those performance bits. And then if you want to step up to the 700A to have more of the creature comforts, maybe a little bit more of the leather in there, you can choose to do the 700A package as well. On top of that, you have the Elite package and the Appearance package. So just like in the 60s, when we started out with Mach 1 and that personalization, this 2021 Mach 1 represents that personalization and that performance that is worthy of the Mach 1 name. And we are so glad after 17 years to be bringing it back. What I'd like to do now is introduce Carl Whitman, who is the chief engineer on this program, to tell you how his team, the men and women doing it, what they put into this vehicle to make it that performance monster that we would like for the 2021 Mach 1. Carl?
Thanks, Jim. Again, thanks for coming out. So I've been chief engineer now for about 5 years, a true privilege. But with that privilege comes the responsibility of every year you have to come up with what's the next best Mustang. And the Mach 1 lives up to that for this year in 2021. It delivers on the heritage, as Jim was saying, and it takes the best performance we had available for the 5-liter to give that to the customer. So as the 350 went out of production and the Bullet went out of production, it gave us the ability to really create a vehicle that was a 5-liter track-capable car. So what I'll do is kind of go through that thought process, how we created that vehicle, as Jim said, for that option in powertrain performance, but both track capability, both with the manual and the automatic. So to start with, what was the best 5-liter we had available? So the 5-liter that we put into the vehicle is a 5-liter you'll know from the Bullet. So it's a 480 horsepower engine, right? How does it do that? It delivers 480 horsepower right up to about 7,000 RPM with a red line of 7,500, which is awesome to drive it. It's rewarding to rev to the red line. You always have power. It's great. It does a symphony of sound as it does that. Why it sounds so good, it runs an open air box, runs an 85 millimeter throttle body, has an intake manifold for high flow that comes out of the 350. And with it, 5-liter is port fuel injection and direct injection, so we have a great fueling strategy. All that calibration work was done with an active exhaust system, so it's a high flow system. It's always got that capability to rev. So that was what we wanted from a track. You want a motor that can rev, pull power all the way into red line. What we did is we matched it up with 2 different transmissions. So for a manual transmission, we pulled in the Tremec, as stated. You wanted a rev match, we wanted more approachable. We wanted that vehicle so you can get it on the track. You don't have to super think about what, heel toe. It'll do it for you if you want. But with the Tremec came the ability to add a cooler to it. So we run a full transmission cooler out this side to the front. You'll see it through here. That cooler on the automatic version increases the transmission cooling on the automatic by 75%. So it gives you that added capability in the automatic also. But on the manual from the Tremec, it gives us that cooling capability. The Tremec also is paired in with a short throw shifter, which you'll see when you get it. So it's a nice gate system. It also comes with a twin disc clutch that we pulled out of the 5-liter, matched it up complete with, give it a nice, easy pedal modulation, so you actually don't have to have a tremendous amount of force to apply it, but a lot of torque capability in that clutch system. So if you look at the engine system, we've actually increased the cooling system by about 50%. So there's a unique engine oil cooler that comes out the other side to match off against it. So that gives the engine with the automatic, we run a tremendously high average RPM on the track, so we needed that engine to keep cool for us while we're out there on the track. So with that, it gives you your engine and your transmission combinations. So as we kind of go through how we put the power down, right, we run the torsion diffs, run a 373 in the manual application, a 355 in the automatic application. That gives you the ability when you're on a track, it'll send torque to each wheel through a gearing system versus a limited slip. So we always like that on our track performance. That's standard in the vehicle. And if you look in the back, we've run kind of a variation of our active exhaust system, but we've run it out in a 4.5-inch tip, which is perfed. Did that for legal reasons. We want a good sound quality out of this. That's a characteristic of the Mach 1. But we take the high frequency out with the perf tip, and that still gives us the ability to get through the trap speeds for pass-by noise. And our goal there is just to be barely legal in all countries, which we do, right? We do for Brazil, we do for Australia, we do for Germany. So we really, this particular car is sold globally the same. So that's our intent. All the calibrations are the same for performance. All the modes are the same. So if you look at the car, the big thing that we had to do in the design of the Mach 1 was really deliver on all the heat exchangers that are both in the sides, the center. We have dedicated brake cooling ducts that go in for cooling purposes. So if you look at all the airflow management we do, normally when you add all that airflow into the underhood, it will actually create the vehicle to have lift. We'll basically pull it up. So the trick for a track-capable vehicle, we really want to have more downforce than lift. So the aerodynamics team and the studio team had that challenge to put more airflow into the vehicle for heat exchangers, but actually have more downforce. So you kind of see some of the tricks as you kind of walk around the vehicle, put it up on blocks and get underneath it. But you'll see we'll have exits for the heat exchangers on the wheel arch liners, very similar like we did with Shelby. If you look at the under tray, it's a very large under tray system that's set up, goes all the way back to here to really keep that flow on the vehicle, to pull it down. So in essence, that gives us the ability to not lift. We're actually using that airflow to pull it down. You'll see also on the brake cooling, we actually put in kickers to basically add to the duct cooling. We actually put air from the underbody of the car, which we did on the performance package. So we kind of mimic that here to get maximum amount of airflow in. And if you look at the details, every one of these is sealed off. All the heat exchangers run a secondary sealing system, and then what that does is all the air that's going in goes through the heat exchanger. There's no waste. So everything that we've got in the heat exchanger is the minimum we need for airflow. So all these targets were set up for how much we needed across each of these heat exchangers, because we knew exactly what the Shelbys were doing for engine oil temperature on the Voodoos. We knew what the Tremec was doing on the 350. So all that data was available to us. So as we set up the targets for the vehicle, we could do that analytically and then really design this whole front end so it had a unique appearance and it has that aggressive stance to it. So it looks like it's moving when it's standing still. And at that same time, really give that downforce we needed as you go 160 plus miles an hour with this vehicle. So that's really the trick of the studio team and our aero team, as they integrated all these together at once. Must have been 100 different versions of the Mach 1 in time and space as we went through each of these. And if you look at that appearance, it is unique. When it pulls up behind you, people do move out of your way on the road course and also on the street when you're driving around. The other unique stuff that we have on the interior is really light touch for appearance. Again, we have the gauges available in the center, like in the performance pack. It's always a chassis unique badge, the same that we did on the Bullet, the Shelbys, as they go down the line. And then, of course, the cue ball shifter on the manuals, leather wrap shifter on the automatics. In the back of the car, you'll see we use the rear axle coolers from the Shelbys, same kind of thing on the torsions. You can take out about 2 to 3 kilowatts of heat which gives you more track endurance than without a cooler. And you'll see the diffuser on the back to really force the air through that. So again, what you don't see with all this is all the chassis work that was also done underneath. So with all that power and aerodynamics, what Mike and the guys did with Tom Barnes is really retune the chassis now that it had that capability of performance. So the rear subframe comes out of a 350, again, gives it stiffer, more precise steering. Again, the toe length's out of a 500. These are basically stiffer parts that really gives the response to that vehicle as you go into a turn. You know where it is. And we were quite fortunate. My Ford Performance team was working on a new eye shaft, and we were able to bring it into this product at the same time we brought it into the 350. So the spline eye shaft and the steering system combined with the tighter bushings gave us that more tied in as you're driving the car hard. It's easier to predict where you want to put it, and that gives you more control and more desire to push it than the RPMs and speed through the turn. The springs, again, are tuned to balance off the car, so you can talk to Mike about that as you kind of wait for your track run. And then MagneRide, as we do every MagneRide and ABS tuning and traction control tuning, we learn more about the software. So as you drive these cars on the street, you'll notice it's a very tame drive on the street, but very aggressive when you get it onto the track. And that's that capability of having the ability 1,000 times a second to change based on everything coming in across all the sensors in the vehicle, what that tuning needs to be, and the reaction time that can come out of a MagneRide system. So that's all retuned and unique to this vehicle. And as you kind of go through and experience the car, in the automatic versions, we have a unique track mode that is set up for track. So instead of just 2 shift schedules, we run 3 shift schedules on this vehicle. We have one for normal, sport, and track. And then there is no lift shift capability on a manual transmission application. So at higher PRMs, you can just leave your accelerator pedal down and then put it in gear. Again, everything's kind of tying back to what is the character of this vehicle, what is unique to it, and it's all really focused on that experience of, you know, on the weekend, I can take this car to the track, drive it, put a smile on my face, drive it home that night, and then drive it to work the next day. So that is really the appeal of the vehicle and the hard work of the team of every little detail from every millimeter of the front end to basically take that engineering challenge and make it look good, have more air into it, and then have more downforce at the same time. So, and then on the calibrations, that is all unique again, and when you drive them on the road, the track, you'll experience it. So it all really comes into our customers across the globe are looking for that excitement, and you'll get those memories as you drive it. And that's really what we aim to deliver each time we do a feature car for the vehicle.
So on the street, the cars are pretty comparable. The engineers did a fantastic job calibrating all the support systems and working with the hardware in this car. And it really handles well and rides great. kind of soaks up the bumps. You can feel them, but they don't beat you up. It rides nicely, perfectly streetable, and then particularly the handling package car does its job out on the racetrack. But obviously it's a great looking car. It's very aerodynamic. It has the cooling capacity to stand up to repeated track use. But the three things that I really come away with loving about the car is, number one, the automatic transmission totally steals the show. I can't believe I'm saying this because I love driving manual transmissions, but this transmission and the new calibration and the algorithm that allows grabbing the clutches quicker to get those brisk shifts out on the road course really lets the automatic transmission hang right there with a manual transmission driven by somebody who's a skilled driver. The Ford engineers say that it's as quick on most road courses with the automatic, and I would believe that because it really does a fantastic job. And it feels good in a straight line as well. Like I said before, it keeps the engine in its power band. This car only has 480 horsepower, just like the Bullet. When I say only, it's lots of horsepower. But with the automatic, which you couldn't get in the Bullet, it just stays in that power band and keeps screaming. And even on the road course, your average revs are higher because the automatic keeps it up in that power band the whole time. And this base model, like I said, I think it's going to be just a flyer at the drag strip. So the automatic is number one really surprise and delight feature of the new Mach 1. Number two is the steering. That might not sound that exciting, but the steering on this car is really great. It's assisted enough and precise enough, but it's not too heavy. The on-center feel is great. The engineers have gotten rid of the rut wander that you would find in the Shelby GT350 that had the same tire setup where it would follow the imperfections in the road. This thing just tracks straight, very little effort to steer it, and it feels very good on the racetrack. You know exactly where it's going to point the car, and the steering is my number two surprise and delight feature on the new Mach 1. Number three is this exhaust. Now in this full interior car, it's not quite as loud in here, but in the handling package cars that we drove on the road course with the rear seat delete, it was quite a bit louder, and you can really hear the personality of the exhaust. It's almost got this rasp, this bite to it. It's really aggressive, and it's something that gives the Mach 1 a signature. It doesn't sound like the Bullet or the PPL2 or the GT500. It's got its own exhaust personality. And you know, for a car like this, you really can't underestimate how that makes the car enjoyable to drive. So there's lots to like about this car, but for the purposes of this video, those are three things that really stand out. You'll have to follow along on my social medias and make sure to check out stories I write about this car, where I'll dig in much deeper. I got a lot of opportunity to speak with the engineers that designed and created this car, so I learned a lot. Even though I'd already spoken to some of them about it before, I learned even more about what went into making this car a cohesive package. It'd be easy just to think that they grabbed a bunch of parts off the shelf from other cars, bolted them on a Mustang, and shoved it out the door, but that's not the case at all. Yes, they are benefiting from the S550 being a mature platform, so they've created various parts across that lineage that they're able to draw from, but they were able to pick the ones that they needed to do particular jobs, and then with all the software and the electronic power steering, the Magna Ride, traction control, everything integrates those parts into a cohesive package. And the car is really easy to drive. You know, I didn't spend enough time on the road course to really super get comfortable with the course itself, but I was able to pour on the power in the places that I was familiar with, and really the car stays really neutral, and when you're coming out of the corner you can just feed it the gas and it just plants and goes, and it's predictable. There's really no sudden surprises. The tail doesn't come out on you, anything like that. The brakes seem fully capable of handling and being at the track, and it doesn't have any degradation in performance like say a PPL2 that didn't have the coolers. This thing has plenty of cooling capacity, enough for both the automatic and the manual transmissions to get the job done. So you can just go out there and beat on it. You can drive it to the track, have a fun track day, and then drive this car home. So if you're planning to get a Mach 1, or you didn't know you were planning to get one until you saw this, I think you're really going to like it. It's not a direct replacement for Bullitt or PPL2 or the Shelby GT350. And let's face it, GT350 would be pretty hard to replace because it's got its own with the flat blank crank and some of its features. But since we don't have any of those cars anymore, this car is a fantastic bridge between the Mustang GT and the Shelby GT500. Let's face it, GT500 is a pricey ride. So if you want a performance car that far exceeds what the Mustang GT can do, Mach 1 is going to be your answer. It's a lot of fun. It's a great looking car. And yeah, I know it doesn't have a shaker scoop, but the shaker was optional on the originals. And if you really want one, the aftermarket will provide one for you. But Ford was looking to only do things to this car that were functional, and the shaker just didn't bring anything to the table there. So if you really want the looks of it, you can add one after the fact, but this car is built to perform, and it does it well. All right, so my day is almost done here, but before I could go, I had to take a spin in the base Mach 1. It was fantastic driving the handling package cars out on the road course and out here on the street, but I would be remiss to leave without experiencing the base Mach 1. Now this one does have the automatic transmission, which is a fantastic combination because it keeps the engine right in the power band the whole time. And I think this one is going to be your drag strip weapon if that's where your head is at, because you're going to get less resistance from these tires, a little bit better straight line traction actually, and the automatic is going to just keep that engine singing right in the power band sweet spot, and it feels great. So let's go for a quick drive, then I gotta head to the airport.